Time and repetition just has to do with the fact that when you're practicing a new technical element, the body tends not to want to learn new movement patterns. And this is especially true if you're a little bit older and you have some ingrained movement patterns, or for instance, if you're self-taught and you have a bad technical habit. Our body is simply made to repeat the motor patterns that we've learned, and this is a good thing. As I always tell people, if that weren't the case every day when you woke up, you wouldn't be able to walk to the door or stand up or do anything. You'd just die because you'd have to relearn all your motor patterns. And so I think that this is probably a survival mechanism for the body. Unfortunately, it's not helpful for us if we're trying to relearn a bad motor pattern, because it means that it takes a lot of conscious repetition to relearn that. So for instance, one thing I see time and time again when students come in is that they'll have some sort of problem with the wrist. They might play with the wrist really quite low and do things like this, where they're expending a tremendous amount of energy to make the key go down, tremendous amount of movement that's just completely unnecessary. And sometimes you see the opposite, of course, but that's just an example. And it's amazing how we can correct that in lesson, and then they'll come back the next week and it'll be completely, back to where it was, because you will think, okay, they've got this, or you yourself when you're practicing think, okay, I've got this habit down, and then the body just clicks back into the old way of operating. Now, once you have a good habit, of course, this is a good thing, right? Because it's ingrained and you want that good habit. But if you have a bad habit at the piano, it can be really tricky to break it for that reason. So the first kind of general rule is, when you're correcting something, when you found a movement pattern that really works, you want to make sure that you take time to repeat it, that it's not just something you do once, but you do day after day. And actually, if you're approaching it in a piece, my experience has been that it takes a few generations of pieces for a technical habit to really stick. So if I'm working with a student who has some bad habits and I assign them a new piece of music, first of all, often I'll assign them something that's below where they think their playing level is, because we need the brain power left over to concentrate on technique. But it usually is not in that piece that things become fluid. You'll see a little bit of improvement, and then a little bit of improvement in the next piece, and then 4 or 5 pieces later, if they're really conscientious, that's when the new habit will become more natural for them. So it takes time. It takes, if you're working on it in a piece, several generations of pieces, and it takes quite a bit of repetition.